Get in, but as people are logging into the meeting, I just want to go ahead and welcome everyone to Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. It's great to have everybody here today. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names joining us, so thank you for supporting our weekly webinar or our bi-weekly webinar. Today we're going to be talking about improved cycle time to increase profitability. We're going to be coming from several different perspectives and angles so that you can truly understand how cycle time can come in and cause time creep in all different areas. But before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping items. So Jim, if you'll switch the slide for me, please.
Getting there. Okay.
Thank you. We are recording this session, so if you want to revisit it, you can go to our website at www.builderpartnerships.com/events, and you can visit this webinar and many of the others that we have done since April. And then we also are going to be taking questions. Go ahead and submit your questions as they come up during the webinar. If we can, we'll address them if it's appropriate to stop to do questions at all during the webinar, but we'll likely reserve all of your questions until the end. And of course, we always welcome your comments and suggestions. You can send me an email at ejswilder@shinnconsulting.com. Go ahead and switch to the next slide. Today, our webinar is actually sponsored by Shinn Consulting and our three amazing consultants, Ed Hauk, Rick Maurer, and Jim Weigel. Together, they provide a wide array of specialties, and you can see here on the list all the different parts of the organization that they can help focus and help provide an opportunity to improve your profitability in your organization. And as we go through the webinar, you'll be able to pinpoint what their different specialties are. So make sure if you need any additional support after you hear this webinar that you make contact with all three of these guys. So I'm going to go ahead. I think we're ready to get started. And I'm going to pass it over to Jim to get started. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, MJ. And the way we're going to work with this today, we'll each be talking a little bit. Ed, Rick, and I will each have some comments about each of these topics, but we're talking about cycle time today. These are just a few of the examples that we're hearing from a lot of our clients and people we talk to regularly. And that's what we're going to, this is going to be a very practical session based on the conversations we're having every day and every week with our clients, trying to help them with cycle time, profitability, customer satisfaction, trade partners, etc. And so here's some of the things that are a big deal to folks right now. There's all kinds of other reasons why cycle time can be a problem. But if you've got some other comments as to what's causing a problem for you with cycle time, please type them in there. You know, we'd love to hear what kind of problems you're experiencing from cycle time. But probably the biggest thing that's happening is trades aren't showing up, things taking longer to get a house started and get it completed. That causes our cash flow and our profitability to be unpredictable because our closing is delayed a lot. So we're going to talk some more about why today. And the root cause is really a lot of the things that have to cycle, our schedules, our processes, aren't working as well as they should. So we've got to understand what piece of our processes and our schedules aren't working so we can go fix it. Here's the way we're going to talk about it today. Mainly, we're going to start with the construction cycle and process. We'll talk then about the soft or pre-construction cycle, because that's where a lot of problems start in the construction cycle. A lot of problems that are caused by the sales and production and how we decide when we're going to start production and what our production level is. Some of those things are also caused by construction drawings and specifications not being as clear and concise and as available as possible. And then a lot of that stuff is caused by various leadership and management things that we do or don't do, including what we do to open new communities and how we go about creating new products. In addition, a lot of that just has to do with how we recruit, train, and organize, and especially develop our people. So we'll be going through each of those here. And so feel free, if you think of any other things that you think might be causing your cycle times to be screwed up, let us know. So the first one we're going to talk about is construction. And I know Rick, Ed, you guys have been talking about this a lot. Our trades just can't rely on what we're doing. They can't use it to plan because we're not communicating to them. They're being reactive. A lot of times, anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of the time, nobody's doing anything on the house. The schedule is unreliable, and so we can't really know what to do.
Yeah,
Jim, you're 100%. Go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, in this slide, we're talking too primarily about schedules and how schedule with cycle time. But you have to keep in mind now, with my background being heavily in purchasing, my mind automatically goes to the purchasing side of things. This unreliability cycle, you could apply to anything. The fact is, if your purchase orders and work orders are consistently unreliable, if your start packages and your selections are consistently unreliable, and they don't know what products to bring out, it all leads to this unreliability cycle and hurts your cycle time, whether it's schedule or any other aspect of the company. So you can look at it well beyond just the schedule.
What else, Ed?
So when we're working with this, that we're always hammering on our trades to use the schedule. And then what happens is most of the unreliability is either our schedules are not accurate or we're not actively touching the schedule daily. So it's not updated. So we can't really hammer on the trades unless, to Rick's point, we have our store in order, because otherwise that's what's happened is the trades are always complaining, well, we get the schedule out and I kind of know about when I'm going to be there, but I don't really pay attention to it till the day before when I ride by. That's the unreliability. You know, this slide here, jobs are not ready. The trades just can't rely on it. Some of the builders have built their schedules so tight to really be braggadocious that I have a 110-day schedule or a 90-day schedule, but they're so tight, they're not reliable. And right now with COVID, you know, we're having a lot of issues. Some of the issues is we can't load up the house. Can't have too many people in the house. On top of that, every builder we're working with is overextended. Everybody is in growth mode, and we're really not telling the trades. So therefore, now the trades that in our session yesterday, in one of our breakout sessions, we talked about the trades do not have a complete crew. What they're doing is they're splitting things up, just trying to spread things out, you know. But it really becomes down to it's up to us, you know, making sure we're walking the houses every single day. We're touching that schedule every day. The notifications are accurate. If we don't do our part, the schedule can't do its part.
Yep. And Ed, to tie into that too, you always talk about when we're meeting with builders about the builder of choice and, you know, what makes you the builder of choice to be able to get the labor you need and keep on schedule. The biggest killer of builder of choice is dry runs. And, you know, you're 100% right. When everybody's stretched thin and everybody's busy, you know, having 100% ready for that job is more critical than ever.
Exactly. Probably the key message to take away from this is if you're not talking to your trades about what's going on, that's the first thing to do. That's the first thing we're asking everybody to do is to why the schedule isn't working is we've got to be talking to our trades and understanding it. You know, we can't keep blaming whether the foundation guy didn't show up or the framers doesn't have a big enough crew, et cetera. It's why not? There's something going on in their lives, in their business, and you're probably part of the cause of that. That's creating that problem. To work with something that really works for them. We work with our superintendents a lot to create a consistent schedule. But let's make sure that we're also working with our key trades. You know, there's usually only 6 to 8 of them that we really have to focus on. So it's not that difficult to work to create a schedule that's 80–90% accurate. Get going on it. If they haven't bought into it, they're not going to be accountable for it. So whether your superintendents aren't involved in it or your trades, they won't be accountable. And keep looking for a solution. And I know that's who we're talking to all the time. You know, Ed and Rick and I about what solutions to resolve, whether it's a foundation schedule, a framing schedule, some of the front end stuff, et cetera.
So Jim, the one key point I love on this slide is working with the trades to create an accurate schedule. And what that means is I want to meet with every single trade. A lot of times what happens is we create a schedule in a vacuum. And for example, I decide this is a 7-day house for the framer. We throw 7 days in, but nobody told the framer. As that's part of the expectations. Purchasing didn't have it in the contract to say that I'm expecting this in 7 working days or whatever it might be. In my old world, my first time buyers, they were 5-day houses all day long. But every single trade, there's give or take 30, 35 trades a house. If we don't talk to them about that expectation, when we create a schedule, and then also talk to them later on as we're contracting new jobs, setting that expectation. If I only have 2 days in for a plumber and he's constantly taking 3 days, a lot of times we're on site on our consulting life, we find out nobody ever can communicate that to the trade.
Yep. And this ties right into, we're working with a couple of builders right now with helping set up trade councils. That's it. Things like trade councils can go a long way in setting those proper expectations and getting their partnership to make sure our schedules are correct.
You bet. And don't think that going to panelizing or modularizing your house changes this a lot. You still have to put all that stuff together. Your trades have to put everything inside of it. So it helps, but make sure that you're still talking to everybody, even if you're doing more panelizing. Probably the biggest thing that I talk to a lot of our clients about, or mine, is we want to improve our cycle time. We want to get faster. Well, a lot of times you have to go slower. This is an old race car driver saying that you got to go slower before you can go faster. And the key thing is you have to gain control and get consistent deliveries and get consistent on hitting your schedule points before you can start improving it. So that's the most important thing, is create consistency first in that schedule. And we'll talk about one of the methods to do that through buffers. But some of the other things we talked about is just talking with those trades so you can get consistent. And once you're consistent, you can be predictable. And then if you're predictable, you can start to become reliable to your trade partners, yourselves, and your cash flow, and especially your customers.
So Jim, the predictability is probably the most important thing for the trades. And we've worked in all markets all over the country. In every market, I always get this: well, our trades can't do this. Once they realize that this is their cash flow and they can count on your predictability, they will give you more crews because you're always accurate and you're right. When we're working with builders, we got to get all the field team to understand you can't if you accelerate that schedule and pull it forward, you make the problem worse. It's the same thing as being late. The most important thing is the consistency. Those trades will bank on you for consistency. That's money to them.
Yep. So probably one of the easiest ways to do that, in addition to building the schedule together, is create some buffers, some sort of slack time, some places maybe at the end of each key phase where you can handle delivery delays or weather problems or whatever is going to happen that might cause the schedule to be off. Then it doesn't cause problems later on in the job. I know Ed and Rick can give you even more examples of this.
Yeah, so Rick and I were talking about this the other day with one of the builders we're working on as we're building that schedule, is you don't want to put fat in a stage. I don't want to put fat in the plumber. Say, well, this plumber's always late. You don't want to do that. You want to put the accurate timing for the trade that they can hit all the time, 100% of the time. And to Jim's point, I look at different important phases for buffers. It's not loaded up through the house and not everywhere. They're key points. One of the ones I use as an example all the time is, in my world, right at the frame inspection, insulation inspection, it's brutal to get that thing done and get it passed. Inspectors are getting tougher. If I load rock the next day, the inspection comes in, he's going to fail me because there's rock in the house. What I do is I put a buffer. That's a 1-day buffer. And what it does, it keeps reliability. If I pass, I have a little bit of extra time with that particular trade, the drywall contractor. So I don't build it into the drywall guy because I still want to hold him to an 8-day house. So I have strategic places for buffers. And there's not a lot of them. In total, I have maybe about 8 in one of my schedules. So look strategically where they are. You just got to teach your field guys, don't accelerate that schedule. The buffer's there for a reason. It's more important to be right and accurate 100% of the time than save a day here and there. Because what happens is the domino effect, downhill from there, all the trades are off, and then you're no longer accurate.
Yep. I think another issue that especially Rick was bringing up was being a builder of choice is at some point you just have to realize, and I'll just talk about it here because we're going to move on to the soft construction cycle, but there's 4 basic things you need to do to be a builder of choice and to get more trades. One is you have to give them very clear instructions through your construction plans and drawings, your specifications, your purchase orders, your schedule. When do they need to be there and what do they need to do? The second thing you need to do is have the job ready. The third thing you need to do is negotiate fairly with them. And I'll talk about an example from a question that I'm seeing from one of you right now. And then the fourth thing is you got to pay them timely. If you do those 4 things, you will solve 90% of the trade problems, and you should not have any trouble getting trades, even in a competitive market. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Emma Jane, were you there?
I am. Did you want me to read the question, Jim?
I'll read it here. There's a suggestion to handle a single template that's used in the same product, different communities with different vendors doing the same scope of work. So say we have different vendors, but they're working on the same schedule. How do we work with all of them to customize the schedule template to them? It may work, one may work with another, one may not work with one of them. This is from some old Navy days. We used to have a saying that there's the right way, the wrong way, and the Navy way. And what I'm going to suggest is you're going to pick a way that is your way. So you're going to come up with your builder's way to do things. And I'm fine if you want to work with those trades and they want to get together and agree on a schedule that works for them, for their schedule piece. But at some point, you're going to be coming up with one that you have to decide on. Here's our schedule. And some vendors may have to change what they do to handle that schedule. But it's like Rick was saying with a trade council. That's one of the greatest purposes of a trade council is you get people together to solve problems that affect all of them. It's a great way to use them. Ed, Rick, feel free to expand on that question.
So Jim, one of the ones that comes to mind, that has come up several times. One of the toughest trades we have to recruit, and is always the bottleneck, is a framer. So I need some more houses. I need 10%, 20% more houses. I pick a framer, and he's not a 6-day house; he's a 10-day house. That causes problems. What I can do, depending on your software, so there's a couple things I can do. One is wherever that trade is in that particular community, I can do community-specific changes in that and adapt to him, because at this point, I need the framer. Other places in the schedule, I'm going to try and force our schedule and work with them to get to it. But in the case of a very specific trade like that framer, what we've done is put some buffer days in that community and then work with that trade to be able to get that house up to speed. So there's where the consistency, might come in, and it really depends on what software you're on, how well that will happen.
Yep. And Rick, if you're saying something, you're still muted. That's all right.
Okay, sorry, there we go. I think having a consistent schedule is really important. Now, if you have different product line and you have a different schedule for an attached product versus single, that's fine. But on a case-by-case basis, maybe you need to make an adjustment. Sometimes it's not even because a framer is taking longer at a job site. Maybe it's because that job site has specific requirements for inspections or regulations that are going on that require the schedule to fluctuate a little bit, but you should still have a base template. It's no different than having a base budget on a house, and that could vary based on included features at a job, but your base should always be the same.
Exactly. Even with different product types, you can create schedules where, say, you get the foundation done and then you have a consistent schedule thereafter, or you get the framing done and then you have a consistent schedule there. You can create schedules that work for different product types as well. That's what we're working with some of our clients about. Whitney, I'm going to get to your question here as we get through the soft and pre-construction cycle, because I think it's an important one. And sometimes people are dealing with it a lot more in the soft and pre-construction cycle. So that's why I'm going to hold off for a second. I'm going to let Ed talk a little bit about soft cycle time because I've been talking more than I should, and Ed knows this great.
So we work with a lot of builders now. We get called when they want to reduce cycle time, and I just had a call prior to this one where the soft cycle, so everybody knows, is the time from signing a contract to the actual releasing and or getting the permit. I can measure that multiple different ways, but if you're not managing that and watching every stage, I guarantee you your soft cycle is getting long. In some of these extreme cases, the soft cycle is almost as long as the construction cycle. Okay, and that's a problem. So working with the one builder now, we built this template. I was hoping to have it done for today so we could show it, but I don't have it down yet. It'll show you the impact on that soft cycle time. So the builder I was working with this morning, he's got 78 houses in the queue trying to release into soft cycle. And it's almost all internal problems. It's not their buyer, it's that they don't have a good process. They don't have a good timeline. So you want to be able to manage that and be able to hold everybody accountable. For example, I bring the contract in. In some cases, we start finding out the ratification process is like, it's just insane long. How many people have to sign that contract? They're wearing the contract out by sending it around the office. I found out this morning their soft cycle on the contract ratification was 3 weeks. I don't get it. Everything's, why does that many people have to sign it? So what I want to do is have every piece of the pre-con is scheduled. I want to manage every phase of it. I want to have it line itemed out. And the first step we did is we created a map, a process map for everything that had to be done. Then we realized in the process map how many things were redundant. How many things were waiting for one thing to happen while something else happens. So, but what we did, the first thing we did is we shortened our ratification process. It's countersigned by 2 people. The whole world doesn't have to sign it. That contract was sitting on desk for days, waiting for the next person to get back in the office and sign it. So right now, we have a 2-person ratification process. We cut 4 people out. After that, as soon as it's ratified, what they did is they took the structural piece and they took the secondary piece. The secondary goes right to the selection process. So the selection process is almost non-existent because by the time they get through everything else, they're already ready to go. So we've targeted they were somewhere north of 60 days, and we're going to cut it in half just by watching the ratification process. So we're ratifying the contract. What these folks have done is by the time the contract's coming in with an approved vendor, the mortgage approval process is already done. So we call that an A contract. That's moving faster. Selections start happening. If at that point, what they're doing is they have master plans. We just got them to master plans. Now the master plans are going to go right into architecture to go to permit. That's 2 weeks, but I've already started my selection process. So the lot specific plans and the plot plans start happening. That's happening in about 3 weeks, okay? And then going to permitting. At that same time, as soon as the ratification process happened, as soon as the lot specific plans were done, estimating already had everything. POs are already out the door. Right now, we're trying to get this down to the point from signing of contract, we're within 30 days. When they were 60 and 90 days. So what's been happening? We've been talking to, I looked at the list before this. We know almost everybody on this list. When they were 90 days out, look what lumber did. Lumber, this was killing them. And if it wasn't for the lumber situation, I don't think they would have ever addressed this problem. So what we looked at is we took their ratification process, the contract, the mortgage approval, all this, and we streamlined it. It doesn't go end to end. Some things are dovetailed before the next phase. But right now, from the actual signing of contract, including ratification, to PO release and going to permit, we're identifying 30 days. We're pulling 30 to 60 days out. When you start counting how many days a year that saves, it's crazy, insane how much time. Not to mention now we're closer to contract. We can actually start forecasting the cost properly. What hurt them is when lumber went crazy, it's $10,000, $15,000 a month. Some of their gross profit were dwindling on this insane backlog. So really take a look at these items that we've got line itemed out. And what are you doing and what can I do faster and quicker? Rick,
and while we're on this slide, just to chime in there too, probably a couple months ago, I actually did a webinar on manufacturer supplier relationships. And understanding during this process, that's important as well. When we talk about selections, PO releasing, start packages, when we're trying to become more efficient, a big part of this soft cycle time is dealing with getting the buyer from contract to the point we're building the house is the design process. So having strong manufacturer relationships will help you have the proper displays in your design center. They'll help guide you to sell the proper options and to get away from custom options that break down all of our processes, all of our procedures, and make it convoluted nightmare and hurts the cycle time on both sides. So it's key to build those relationships, take the time to have them help you, use the resources you have that don't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you anything to have your faucet rep come in or your flooring rep come in and work with you about what you should be showing, how you should be showing it, work with the designers on how they can sell it. And you'd be amazed at the difference it makes on a number of these categories with making it a more efficient process.
Yeah, that's really, really important now in the COVID world, staying close to your trades and your manufacturers about the products that are readily available. I mean, I know it's a moving target lately, but we still have to open up the communication to make sure that we have a better handle. I know most of you guys that are on here that are builder groups, we're ordering POs when we're ordering permits these days. It's crazy. I mean, ordering appliances when we're doing our permit packages. It's crazy what's going on.
Yeah, and this is a good place for Whitney's questions. Material availability, delivery problems, or broken promises are the main difficulties right now for us. Very frustrating to feel we have no control over delivery schedule, even though we planned months ahead. Help. Here's I think what we're talking about, a few things, Whitney, and for everyone else out there, the kernels of the solution are in what we've just been talking about. First of all, build some buffer days in there for material and delivery problems. We haven't had that in a long time. I would expect that's going to continue to be a problem. So build some buffer days in there as well. That's one thing to get some sort of consistency on your process. The next thing is identify the key ones that you're having material and delivery problems with, availability delivery problems right now. Ed mentioned one that's consistent, appliances. And yes, and Rick started mentioning exactly one of the things you got to do is get to know all the way through the supply chain to the person, the factory that's manufacturing those appliances that you use. And my suggestion is do something that I've been doing for years when that happens, is go make a visit to that factory and tour that and start creating some relationships right there at the factory level, so you know the people who are putting that carpet on there, or who are making the windows, or who are manufacturing those appliances. And you know who to talk to directly about all the stuff that you're being told by your distributor, by your trade partner, by their dealers, etc. Because you need to know what's going on with your materials all the way through the supply chain and be able to stay in contact with them. That's going to be part of your purchasing process as well, is getting that information when you sign up a person, a new trade partner. What is their supply chain and what's the contacts and what's the lead time and the notice, so that you can say, here's a promise date, but you're not just going to wait for 90 days, or in like Ed's talking about, it might be 6 months before those appliances are delivered. You're not going to wait that long. You're going to be checking with them every week, every few weeks, to say, all right, where are we in the schedule? What's going on with it? You're going to have to create way more follow-up and lead time to your ordering schedule than we've been used to in the past. I hope that helps.
And Jim, one more quick comment there too, with builder partnerships. That's what we're here for. Utilize us too. So, we work heavily with bringing in strong manufacturers into our program, and the more of the manufacturers, obviously everybody on this webinar today either uses the programs or at least is familiar with them. The more of the manufacturers that are in our program that you use, it allows us to help you with that as well. If you're struggling with a manufacturer, we have the resources to get you in touch with the right person or help get that communication going. So that's an important aspect, that use the resources you have, including builder partnerships.
I only have two quick comments, and we can move on. Number one, I know the person who asked the question, they're very organized on their selection process. But you guys are not organized in the selection process. Having too many selections for the buyers is not going to help us get close to the manufacturers. And especially anybody who's on the semi-custom world, you're just asking for trouble. So really have a definitive product line you're looking for. Start looking at your SKUs, reduce your SKUs, And then to Jim's point, work with the manufacturers. Now, what I heard, Jim says go to the factory. So I think Rick and I are going to schedule a trip to Mexico and go check out a couple factories real quick. So
Yeah, exactly.
that was
And
a
some of
joke,
those,
by the way.
they're always fun, at least in my experience. So feel free.
Absolutely. Reducing the SKUs is important too, by the way.
Yep. All right. Let me move on to the next piece, which is sales and production tends to cause a lot of our problems. So for example, nobody sold houses much in April and May, and then we started selling a whole bunch more in June and July. And so now we want to, our starts and our construction process was not doing much in May. In fact, a lot of people weren't even doing anything. So we're going from 0 or to under 50% productivity. And now, right now, we want everybody to be at 200% productivity because we've got all these houses we want to complete. That kind of scheduling is not going to work. That is inconsistent. So what we're trying to do is make sure from a sales perspective that we're working with customers who are ready and able to buy, and they're really ready for us to start their home right now. And I know there's an example, Ed and I were talking about one of our clients, and I see it in different ways, where if the salespeople are working with customers who aren't even ready, they don't even have their lots ready. If you're doing custom building on someone else's lot, don't spend so much time there. The other thing is watch how long it's taking you to close the house after the home is complete. May not be a big deal right now because sales are real strong, but you need to watch that. How long is it taking to actually close the home? And then are you regularly increasing your home prices at least a small amount every time you sell a few houses? Because if you're not doing that, you're not going to be taking care of all the price increases that are coming up, the cost increases that we know are going to hit us from all of our manufacturers. And if you think something is unavailable, you can bet that someone is paying a higher price to get it. So at some point you might have to reach into your pocket a little bit if it really is necessary to meet that schedule or availability. I'm not saying do it all the time, but occasionally it's a solution.
So Jim, you mentioned the client we're working with, and are we really ready to start a house? And their backlog was crazy. What we did is we set up 4 different categories of priorities. Sales was trying to do the best, ink the deals and push them in. What's happening is they weren't getting prioritized. Lots ready, financing ready, using preferred vendors. All that stuff was really important to start prioritizing these things, and then put the A prospects to the top and cycle them through. So all their A prospects, they're the ones we're getting through in 30 days or less. Some of the other ones will have a little hair on the deal. I don't want to turn them away, but that's a 60-day deal, and with the lumber situation, we're lucky that we got ahead of it. And when we got ahead of it, we were able to save the builder some money by not promising numbers. On the next slide coming up that Jim has, it's really talking about some sort of an even flow type of a concept. We can't be varying our to our trades. I can't sell townhouses 1 month and that's my pace, and then go from 10 to 15. One of the other clients we're working with right now is they're jumping their pace, but they're doing it evenly, nice slowly. They're in 3 different divisions, and they're not trying to put the pedal to metal and go from 10 to 15 to 20 in 2 months. The trades can't keep up with it. What happens then is we force those releases out, and cycle time gets longer, and our trades do the same exact thing because we didn't forecast that to our trades. The other thing I like about this is we lose focus. We're always in a hurry to sell the house, to start the house. Who we're doing the worst disservice to is not us, it's not our trades, it's to our buyers. We're giving them the biggest thing of the day of their life is move-in. And what do? We give them faulty dates. That's the worst way to get customer satisfaction. Or
we don't give them any date. We say we won't tell you what it's really going to be until 60 days, 45 days before. Well, yeah, that's okay. But what we need to do is start giving at least ourselves some internal dates, some promised dates to ourselves internally, when we're going to turn that house over to our warranty department, when we think it's going to be ready, so we can start managing to that date. The even flow slots sell by schedules are so critical so that you have a regular production pace, even though your sales may vary a lot. We had a question about the sales prices as well. You can help moderate your sales pace as well by doing regular sales price increases. My suggestion is don't go much more than 0.5% at a time, and try and do that every time you sell 4 to 6 houses in a community or 4 to 6 of the same floor plan in the same region. I think the key is to do it regular. The other key is to do it small. And it becomes very predictable. And when people are starting to sell more than what they're really doing is selling a future start date, and they should be increasing the price by selling that future start date, that future slot. So this is something we're working with our clients with regularly, and it doesn't take long. Talking with us, even an hour a week for a few weeks to figure this out and get it nailed down.
So Jim's absolutely right. This is kind of like the governor. Right now we're in a hot selling season where we might be exceeding our selling pace by 20, 25%. And you're going to moderate that with little scooches of price increases. And then what's going to happen is, as we go more into November, we're going to start slowing down a little bit, going into the end of the year. I want to have that backlog to carry me through. And then the one thing that really helps, it happens multiple times throughout the year for a lot of reasons. But the other thing it does is I can start dovetailing specs into this. And I think Emma Jane was just texting me that we have a question about pricing. So Emma Jane, you want to hit us with that question while we're on this topic?
Jim got it.
Oh,
it was about how much to increase sales price by. So I think Jim covered that.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, there's little tiny increases. We were with the builder last year or year before, I forget what it was. And we went through this process and we told them little tiny increases, little tiny ones. If you have a $300,000 house and you have a $5,000 increase, you don't slow down your sales. Everybody in your pipeline doesn't run away. In fact, it does the opposite. They'll more than likely start jumping on. But on a $300,000 house, if you had a 10% increase at 30 grand, you just killed your pipeline. You might shut down your sales for 3-4 months. Even 5%, that's 15 grand. You shut it down. But if I did, to Jim's point, at a small $3,000 to $5,000 increase on that price point, you've done nothing but drive more interest because they want to jump on the wagon, not jump off the wagon.
Exactly. And the key is try and make consistency not only in the sales in your production pace, but in sales as well. So that's what we're trying to do, is be as consistent as possible. Because the more you can predict what your sales are, the easier it is for you to go tell your manufacturers, here's how much they have to produce. And that's what you're trying to do, is communicate all the way through your supply chain, like Rick was talking about, and use builder partnerships and use us, because I mean, heck, we got 100 manufacturers relationships.
And that consistency, it relates right back to that unreliability cycle. No matter what aspect you're looking at, the more consistent, the less you'll be falling into that unreliability cycle over and over again. So it's really important to be consistent. That's more important than anything, really.
Yep. The next thing that's causing a lot of problems in the cycle time is people just don't have really clear and complete construction drawings and specifications. So it takes a long time for them to figure out what they're actually supposed to build, or they do it one way and somebody says that's no good, so they got to do it again. So this is where we want to make sure that everything is available to build the house to the trade partners so they can bid it properly, and to the crews so they can actually build it properly. And this helps answer one of the questions earlier. Well, how do you do this with different trade partners who are all in the same scope of work? Well, they all get the exact same plans. And those plans should say, you start in the rear left corner to do your framing. They should all say the same thing. I don't care if that framer likes to start in the front. Well, tough. They're going to do it our way. We're going to start in the back because it works better for everything that's going on in our community. So you still get their input, you still listen to them, but you make a decision about what's best for the way the community should be built. You have that information available to everybody. It's always in a consistent place. It might need to be available in the construction office. It might need to be available in the home. You might want to post certain pieces right there in the home. You're going to have meetings with those trade partners and those new crews. It's available in different formats, but it's always the same. They always have the same kind of information. And the way digital information is available these days, you can get the same thing online as you can get right there at the construction trailer on the home site. And here's the other thing is you're improving it regularly. So if you have a variance or a delay or some quality inspection, or like Ed was talking about, it doesn't pass the frame inspection, then you're going to go change your plans and your specs to fix it the next time. You're doing that quickly so that you've got an improvement process, so all those drawings are always up to date. Ed, I know you got plenty to say on this, and Rick too.
So real quick, things always come in cycles, and most recently, because we're trying to build faster and faster and faster. And the next slide we'll talk about that a little bit. And the problem is we have to have the best plans produce the best direct and construction cost. One of the builders we're working with, just recently, their plans were just subpar. I mean, just really causing construction delays, really construction estimating issues. So the best plans will produce the best houses and the best direct construction costs. And like Jim said, the consistency of this is not that hard. So I don't know what it was been, but from September till now, we've had a major push on getting plans better. I need construction documents. I need the details. I want construction details company-wide. I want them in the back of the plans. How are we installing windows? How are we installing doors? What kind of building paper we're doing? How do they install it? I just can't imagine how we build without having these construction documents done properly. It just doesn't make any sense. So you have to invest in your plans. And I think Rick was getting ready to talk as well.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in there with, I agree. We were working with multiple builders right now that we're going through plans and specifications. And Jim, you said it right on you hit it right on the head there when you talked about we dictate what the trade's going to do. I feel very strongly about that with specifications. When we go through specifications, we have to call out the product and also get away from the habit of, everybody falls in this sometimes where you put use this product or approved equivalent. That word causes havoc in our process. The moment you say that, all of a sudden you don't really have control of what products are going into the homes. And then what if a trade's using something you approved 6 months ago for that one site, and now they're having major supply issues? Now that site is out of control and you're dealing with two manufacturers. So, specifications and scopes of work, we have to dictate how we're going to do it. We have to hold the trades accountable and give the tools to the field to hold the trades accountable. Like you said, those electronic scopes of work that have been signed by the trade. So when they have a problem, they can show the trade, this is what's in the scope, this is what you agreed to. But get away from the vague areas and specifications. It doesn't help any of us.
Exactly. And there's really easy ways to go improve things. Review what's going on with your warranty. Talk to your customers and understand what their surveys really are. Talk to the trades together with other trades as well. What's working, what isn't on the drawings, and then actually change them. Don't just sit there and say we will, or go redline them forever until you can't even see which red line is 2 years old or not. Actually go change those drawings and then disseminate them clearly and make sure you've changed your estimates in your purchase order so everything's consistent. This is where so many of the processes don't exist to actually create our construction drawings and specifications or change them. Like Rick said, you got to have very specific. That's what the word means, specification. It doesn't mean put in whatever the hell you want. It means specifically put this in. That's what it's for. So that's what, if we're not doing then we're not professional. And I expect everybody here is going to be professional, if only because that's the only way to survive.
I agree more, Jim.
Yep. So we're starting to get on our soapbox a little. So I'll pull myself off a little. The key thing is a lot of this stuff starts and ends with leadership and management. I'm going to go through a few things. Are you actually measuring things? Are you measuring whether the activities scheduled for the day are actually happening? Are people in the home working? Do you know that? Are each of the soft cycle activities happening every day that they're supposed to? Are you actually scoring the number of activities that are being worked on divided by the number of activities that we scheduled to be worked on? Do you have that management information so that you know how productive you are in the soft cycle, in the production cycle, the construction cycle, or even before then? You got to be measuring it to be managing it. And then decide, is it working? You know, the more you know that they're becoming predictable and consistent and reliable, everybody can plan, you can keep your schedules current, that drives it, and you continue to measure it. That measuring is really critical. That's what we're spending a lot of time with our clients on, is how to create these measurement systems once we've created a good schedule so that you can actually control it and make sure it's happening. And still, like Whitney was talking about, so you know exactly which manufacturers may not be delivering in the next 3 months. So then we can start planning around that. Or like Rick was saying, if you know exactly what new material is no longer being built or is no longer available, you can go substitute it, communicate that clearly, and not create a big delay. The other things that are causing cycle time problems are when we go develop new products. If we just create a whole new product and don't spend a lot of time involving our trades up front, involved in creating new drawings, etc., we're just asking for trouble. If we just say, go build this, and superintendent, go get it done in trades, you're going to have a lot of schedule and cycle time issues. Same thing with the new community. If we're not telling people, here's what's on the horizon 6 months to a year from now, they can't plan for it. And the more you're actually telling your manufacturers, here's what I got up and coming for the next 3 years, that helps them plan, because they can add more capacity to go to their plants as well as everything else if they know what their demand's going to be. And then the big thing we're working on is training and developing our people, as well as some meetings and just making meetings more productive. Those are a few things that you can improve on a leadership and management perspective. I'll talk about that real quick. New communities. How long is it actually taking you to do a new community? How long does it take from the day it's an idea in the owner's mind to when you actually start the first production home? What is that cycle? Anybody track the steps that are necessary in order to cause that to happen? Anybody manage them? Those are critical. We got to give our managers and our trades the ability to plan. And then start, if you don't have that, at least start with broad strokes. You know, how long is it going to take to do diligence? How long it can take entitlement? How long for some of the development? Just start with the big pieces so that you can avoid the rush that always happens to, oh, we're going to get that model done and it's going to be a 40-day house. And everybody's just racing around trying to get that model done. And then they forget everything else that's going on in their life.
So 2 things to add to that, Jim. This example here shows you should have some sort of a schedule for 2 things. One's the product development and one's the community startup. So they kind of dovetail together. If it's a new community, new product, most people don't track either one. They just know they're going to open on February 1st. Well, if I'm going to open February 1st, how do I get pricing done? Rick and I are working with a builder right now, and we're trying to get the plans done. The plan's got to stop to a certain point so I can start getting pricing, you know. But what does that process look like? When we do new product development discussions, we talk about outlining that. That should be outlined, you know, either in Word or Excel, every task and who's responsible to do it, and a timeline assigned to it. The next thing that's really important, and most builders don't do, somebody doesn't own it. Somebody's got to own the process. Somebody's got to be the champion. It has to be the chair of the committee. There's a lot of ways to do it. You know, the builder we're working with right now, the person who's the chair of the committee, that person actually isn't in charge of the other departments. So he's chairing the committee in this case, but somebody has to manage it. And where the responsibility happens is when I have a due date of tomorrow for something, and you show up at the meeting and you don't have something complete, the whole schedule is getting pushed back. Or how to make that schedule up. If you're looking at all these steps, that last slide, the big thing at the very end is avoid the rush at the end. Exactly.
Just like I'm going to have to try and do right now is avoid the rush at the end of our session right now. So, so So the next piece is the new product development. One of the best ways Ed was talking about, they're very similar. Both of these cycles, these processes, new products and new communities, you got to create a schedule and create some accountability and benchmarks. And here's one of the easiest ways to decide about product development. If you're selling a lot of a floor plan, but you're not making much money on it, like that second one, the Magnolial, or the fourth one, the Troy, you're selling a whole bunch of them, but you're not making money. Those are ones that you should get rid of or redesign. So here's a great tool to help you decide what kind of new products you want to go develop. And if you're going to go develop new products, don't keep adding to them. Subtract some product as well. Otherwise, you're going to drive everybody nuts unless you're getting rid of some products at the same time that you're adding some. In fact, I would use a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio right now from all the builders I'm seeing right now. They probably have 2 to 3 times more plans than they need. So if you're going to add a new one, get rid of 2 or 3.
So the rule of thumb is 80% of your sales come from 20% of your plans, which means the other 80% of your plans stink. And one of the things we find out when we're doing this, builders that have collected plans and think they're an architectural firm usually have the worst direct construction costs because nobody can quantify and track all those plans.
Yep.
So you get cost creep. There's fat in all of them. It takes a lot to manage that. So that's a whole different. We can go off on that one for another hour. But to Jim's point, we have a timing restraint here, so I won't go on.
So we'll continue real quick. Another leadership management task is organizing the production function properly. So we're seeing a bunch of people deciding, should we have 1 superintendent per house or 2 or more? A front end or back end one. Well, a lot of times you have a front end and back end superintendent. You have the back end superintendent as the person with the least experience, but that's where the most activity is that's going on. So now you're burying this person who's new to the work and doesn't know how to do all this stuff. So where do you think you're going to have problems? Another thing that we don't take into account when we're organizing things is the windshield time. How much does our superintendents have to drive from house to house to try and figure them out? A lot of folks don't even have a regular discipline of, you got to be in that house 1 to 3 times a day, at least once at the front end and probably close to 3 times or more at the back end because there's so much going on. And people need to be paying attention to that job being complete and that job being ready to go. Do we even have written, consistent, regularly used schedules that are posted so that even the crew can see where they're supposed to be today? Otherwise, realize that if you lose a day, you're going to lose a week, and it's just going to cascade those delays. Do you have a morning manpower report where when you're walking that house in the morning, Ed and I have been developing this, and I know Rick's been working on it forever. Just do people report back to you from a management standpoint as someone on that house? Is someone where they should be in the morning? And if not, who's calling them to make sure it happens? That's why 1/3 to 2/3 of the time, no one's on the house, because we don't even know if they're there. And then do we have any kind of regular trade partner onboarding, how we train them, show them how to do work? Do we regularly evaluate how they're doing? Do we regularly evaluate how we're doing with them? Go ahead, Ed.
So Jimmy, one simple little thing that, all you should teach your superintendents. We just went through this yesterday in a production manager seminar. Morning manpower report. Your superintendent should know how many people in a crew every single trade should have. If I need 6 men in a frame crew, if I need 3 guys in a rock crew, whatever it might be, that should be known. When there's like half the people on there, what the trades are doing, trying to make us all happy, is they're splitting their crews up and taking double the time. That's your first line of defense of getting houses done on time, is knowing what that is, and first thing in the morning making that manpower report, makes the phone calls.
Yeah, we used to have a phrase for that. It's a Colorado phrase. When trades staking a claim, all they're doing is putting one guy on there to show the flag,
Absolutely. We heard that yesterday a lot.
So one of the key things is, are you really training and developing your folks? Showing them, because the people on this call, are you doing this? Are you paying attention to the principles? Do you understand that cycle time is really all the value-added steps plus all of the non-value-added steps in a process? That's all cycle time is for anything that we're talking about. And most of the time, a lot of what's going on is non-value added steps, and we're not paying attention to that. There's some basic principles that we need to learn and apply to the problem we have at the time so we can eliminate this waste. We need to provide some different resources, use technology. There's some great tools these days with the enterprise resource planning and the different computer systems. So everything's continuous. We eliminate these choke points or joints, and we have to do this through people in different parts of the company and different companies as well. Sales, production, finance, land, etc. Are you doing that? Does anybody actually know how to look at a cycle and a process, know what's going on, and improve it? That's what we're helping people with all the time. Are your meetings even productive? When we talk to folks so many times, they say, I don't have time to do something, I got to go to all these meetings. And these meetings are a pain. So can we reduce the number of meetings we have? Can we reduce the time it takes? Can we improve the quality of the meetings by focusing on decision making, having a very clear purpose for that meeting, and then evaluating it? I was talking to one person, they've got a 4 to 6 hour backlog meeting every week. And this exact same problems are happening all the time. That's not the kind of meeting we want to work on. So that's what we're helping folks with, is how to be more productive, understand their cycles and processes, and go fix one at a time. That's what we're trying to encourage everybody to do, is have some daily management of certain critical tasks, focus on being exceptions after you've set some smart goals and objectives in the key cycle time areas that we just talked about today. And then have something going on weekly where you're improving your relationships from a leadership standpoint, when you're improving your processes so everybody knows what they're supposed to do. It takes about 30 to 90 minutes a week, ideally 30 minutes a day, that you schedule, where you're going to do something scheduled and you improve what's going on, one thing at a time, so that it gets done. Even if you're working on one thing, it will absolutely get done, versus if you're working on 10. When you do one thing, you fix more than one thing most of the time, and you identify the next most important things you can fix pretty quickly as well. This is the kind of thing we're doing with people all the time, is meeting with them 30 to 90 minutes a week and fixing something, one thing at a time. Each of the things we've been talking about today. In fact, if you focus on cycle time and profit improvement, it begins with leadership and management. It extends to the quality of your drawings and specs. You have to have consistent production aligned with effective sales processes. You've got to have really good and well-managed soft and pre-construction tasks with schedules on construction that are agreed to by everybody's involved with it. And then it still ends with strong management and leadership, so you can improve that cycle all again. Ed, Rick, feel free to jump in with your conclusions.
Are you kidding me? I was not going to get in your way, man. You were hell-bent on making that timeline work. The last slide, I want to comment on one thing on the last slide. What Jim said about meetings is, I can't believe people can actually have meetings that long and people stay awake that long, but they do. You really have to drive yourself to the exception-oriented kind of a concept. Manage it by exception. We talk about all the time. Don't give me a status on what's on schedule. Give me a status of what's not on schedule. And again, be focused on getting out of tell me about the problem and fix the problem. So really get those meetings down. You know, what we try to do is we try to really get those meetings, get an agenda going, you know, and focus on, I don't want a meeting where this one that I'm working with now has a 5-hour meeting and the whole world's in this meeting. That should be delegated to a process and a system, and worry about the exceptions, not what's on schedule. Don't tell me the story in between. So if you ever want to know the value of a meeting, look around the room and add up how much time and how much that meeting cost. Look at the cost of a meeting, you'll probably never meet again. So start thinking about managing your process and systems, you know, and the talent tax that it takes to host some of these meetings is crazy. So I went to a long time ago, and it was a whole thing on time management. And it wasn't even to our industry. And I was told at the time, 20 to 25% should be meeting time and email. The rest of the time, you should be working in the operation, doing things, being productive. Otherwise, that meeting's a giant drain. So I don't want to get in Jim's way because he's hell bent on the conclusion, and we're right on time. And we'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers. So good job, Jim.
Well, it's great job, Jim. And I'll just throw in there, I totally agree with Ed in terms of the agendas. And I was kind of thinking the same line when I saw that slide, is not only agendas, but also dashboards. We're fans of, keeping track of your numbers. So when you're going through, you can't improve something you don't track. And if you want an effective meeting, if you're meeting and you have numbers and facts that you can review and how we can improve, you'll find the meetings you do have are going to be that much more efficient. So I think dashboards and agendas are critical when you're talking about ways to utilize your time and not waste that manpower, like Ed was saying.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Any other questions, comments from everybody online?
I don't have any questions quite yet, but I know you had one question that you answered privately through the Q&A, but I feel like if you could answer that for the whole group here, it was a question about whether or not to offer incentives for the buyer to.
I remember that now. The question was, should we offer an incentive for a buyer who completes the selection process in 2 weeks? And yeah, I think if that works for you, no problem. My better suggestion is make it a requirement in your sales contract that they will finish the selections within 2 weeks, and then make it so that your processes and your systems work so that they can, and you encourage them to complete it within 2 weeks. I personally think anything beyond 2 days is too long. So if you want to, I think that's an achievable thing. If the sales process, normally the sales process is at least 30 days. And a lot of times you can create the selections as being part of the sales process and the closing process, at least the previews. So Ed and Rick may have some additional comments on that question as well.
So, Jim, I mean, what I like, first of all, I like to do is outline whatever that timeline is, depending on the product line, whatever it might be, your capacities, have the timeline and give it to the buyers. The other thing I do is getting that selection process done is part of getting your final closing date, by the way. If I give them the whole process and procedure, I could then say, here's your schedule. I have to have this done and this done and this done by these dates. You meet these requirements, you're on task to make that closing date. So that's number one, to set it out. Usually when the buyers first come in, they are very excited and they can't wait. They're chomping at the bit. The builders working with today is what they're doing is they're wearing their buyers out. And the longer you wear them out, they start to lose interest and you'll lose them. I have no problem with incentivizing something, no matter what it might be. And by the way, when you incentivize something, if you do it right, you're only giving up 50 cents on the dollar in some cases. It's a package, it's a whatever. I don't have a problem doing that at all if that focuses the buyer on that timeline. Because guess what? That focus on that timeline and hitting that timeline is more important than the $500 you gave away, by the way.
Exactly. So Emma Jane, I'm just flipping through some of our last slides real quick. If you want to wrap it up, go right ahead.
I will. Will you go back to your other slide where you had the consultants? So I want to thank you guys for spending the time to put this webinar together today. I know you guys spent a lot of time trying to make sure that you covered all the areas where we might see cycle time creep. And I do want to have people focus on this page. So if you are looking for some support in any of these areas, you can see where our specialties lie. So Ed specializes in operations, purchasing, value engineering, and design centers. We have Rich Cashin, who's also started working with us, who wasn't on the call today. He's working on technology review, assessment, and strategy. Rick Maurer was with us today. He specializes in purchasing, contract negotiations, value engineering, design centers, and Mark Systems implementation assistance. And then, of course, Jim, who was the leader of the webinar today, kind of led the pack. He is specializing in management, marketing, sales, operations, finance, quality, valuations, effective ownership, leader transition, and performance excellence. So you can see we have a really well-rounded team who's here to support you in any aspect that you're looking for. And we talked a little bit about builder partnerships throughout the call. We do offer the rebate program, which Rick mentioned throughout the call. We also work with COVA and Mark Systems to do data transfer to help make that process even easier. So don't leave any money on the table by not taking advantage of the rebates that are offered by the manufacturers. We offer training both online and live classes. We're hoping to get back to live classes again in the spring, but we are continuing to offer our online classes. Right now, we're finishing up production management. That's what Ed was alluding to in about our meeting yesterday. And of course, we have our builder groups. It's kind of a support group for builders because, as Chuck always says, home building is a disease. So you do need some support from your local builders. A lot of the issues that come up during it's just nice to have a group of guys and builders that you can reach out to help solve problems. And then, of course, our consulting services, both remote and on site. Right now, we are offering several remote packages. You can call us to get more information about that. And we're slowly working back into some on-site stuff. So please reach out to us if you need any assistance at all in those areas. And here's a list. I think there might even be some new manufacturers that might not be on this list, but this is a list of all of our manufacturers that we do work with and have relationships with for rebates. So make sure that you contact us or your builder relationship rep, and they can help you start adding in your submitting your rebates. And of course, our HBU, which we offer a full curriculum of certified opportunities in development. We are always adding new classes. So if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me directly or visit our builderpartnerships.com events page. And of course, continue to look for Webinar Wednesday. Our next Webinar Wednesday is the follow-up from our Brilliant webinar we had 2 weeks ago, and he's going to do an interview with a builder who is actually using Brilliant in his model home, so you can see how the builder is implementing that product for smart home technology. And you can contact us at Builder Partnerships and Shinn Consulting right here on this page. Jim, Ed, and Rick's information is there, so you can reach out to them directly. You'll get an email tomorrow as well with their emails, so if you have questions specific to this webinar, you can reach out to them for any help. Thank you again, everybody, for coming to join us. We appreciate having you here, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks at our next webinar.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.